first things first, you want to make sure that you have a good amount of stitches in whatever stitch that you're going to use for your project. So for this project, we're going to use half double crochets. I thought this would be a great stitch to use for this cardigan because it would make it a little bit lighter. You won't have to use as much yarn, and it'll be something really quick that you can whip up. It's not going to take up too much time if you used a smaller stitch. So I'm going to take my OmniGrid ruler. You want to make sure that you have a ruler that measures out the 1 inch by 1 inch so that you can accurately find your stitch gauge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a spot where a stitch starts, and I'm going to line that up with my OmniGrid at the 1 inch mark. So now all we do is we basically count the number of stitches that's within this 1 inch mark and the number of rows. This will all make sense when I show you how to take your measurements and multiply them by these numbers so that you can create any size and any project. Right off the bat, I know there's 1, 2, and I'm going to go with 2.5. So 1, 2.5 rows. So write that down. You know that the height or the number of rows is 2.5 for half double crochets. Okay, so I zoomed in so you have a better view. All we're doing is counting the number of stitches along this 1 inch mark. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches that make up this 1 inch mark. So now I'm going to show you how to translate your measurements into stitches and row height so that you can make this very customizable cardigan into the perfect size for your body. We're going to start off by taking a couple measurements first. The first one is the shoulders. Go ahead and measure from your shoulder down to your wrist. Measure all the way around your wrist as well, and measure from the middle of your neck where your neck meets your shoulders. Measure from that point down to whatever you want the length of your sweater or cardigan to be. Go ahead and fill in the length of all of these measurements. So just to recap, anything that goes from left to right, that's going to be multiplied by 4 because we measured 4 stitches. Anything up and down is going to be multiplied by 2.5 because that's how many rows we created in that 1 inch area. So just transfer that onto these measurements. Something that I'm going to do for this project, because I really want the sleeves to be longer, I'm going to add 4 inches to the sleeve length. So I'm going to add 4 inches to the sleeve length. That's going to equal 29 inches. So we're going to use 29 as our multiplication factor. So we're going to do 29 times the 2.5, and that will equal, it's going to equal 72.5. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to round this number down because yarn stretches. So I'm actually going to go with 72 rows instead of rounding up to 73, mainly for the fact that we're already adding 4 inches to the length and the yarn will stretch. So I'm not really concerned about that extra 0.5 at this point. So now we have for anything going lengthwise, this is the number of stitches. Anything going up and down, that's the height or the number of rows that we're going to make for this project. And I will go ahead and show you right now. So take a look at the other picture that we just created, and that's what you're going to use for your measurements on pretty much everything. All right, so these are the different shapes that we're going to be creating. This is the back panel, and there's only going to be one of these. These are the two side panels that we're going to pull over. There's two of them. All it is the back divided in half. The sleeve, there's going to be two sleeves, unless you only have one arm, then feel free to only make a one-armed cardigan. So 1 + 2 + 2 = 5. So you should have 5 pieces all together. Now we're going to take the measurements that we made, or that we took and calculated from before. If our head is at the top and our feet are at the bottom, this is the height. We want it to be 75 rows tall. We want the length to be 68 stitches. That's how we determine how many rows, how many stitches. So now this front panel is half of the back panel. So we're just going to take the 68 stitches, divide it by 2, and that is going to give us how many stitches we want to make for this section right here. So we have our 34 stitches for the bottom. The number of rows is the same as the back panel. Next, we're going to create the 2 arms. It's a little bit tricky, but don't worry, once you get it, it's so easy. So we know that the length of the arm was 72. After we did our multiplication, we added our 4 extra inches, we multiplied by 2.5. We got 72 when we rounded down. That's how many rows we're gonna have, 72 rows. This is the bottom, this is up where the shoulder is, and this is where your wrist is. So we're going to take the measurement of our wrist, and after the calculation, it's 32 stitches. Going up, it's 72 rows, which we already calculated. Our shoulder is probably the trickiest one to calculate. There's really no calculation, but we're just going to take, because this will eventually be folded in half to make the sleeve, we're going to have the number of stitches for the shoulder. That is going to be the same as the shoulders that we calculated earlier, which is 68 stitches. So I hope that all of that made sense with all of these numbers that we calculated out. Please use these as a reference for any type of project that you use. I highly recommend it, and it'll make everything really easy from this point forward. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to show you what my front panel looks like, and I made 2 of them. So they are both exactly the same size, as well as the back panel. I went ahead and made that as well. It's really simple. All it is just a rectangle, and we did it exactly as the stitches that I showed you. So there's that. So what I'm actually going to be doing is showing you how I make the sleeve. I've already made one, and it's kind of like a rectangle from this point up. So this is a rectangle, and then it comes in at a diagonal, just like we talked about. So essentially what we're gonna do, we're gonna start down here at where our wrist would be, make a slip knot, and chain the appropriate amount of stitches for your wrist. In my case, that's 32 stitches. Then, since we're doing half double crochets, go ahead and mark the last stitch, because that's the one that we're gonna be half double crocheting into, and go ahead and chain 2 and half double crochet into the 3rd stitch away from your hook. Go ahead and half double crochet all the way down. Okay, so I have placed my last half double crochet into the last stitch. Go ahead, chain 2 and turn your work. And basically all we've really done here is done 1 row of half double crochet, just as we would if we were making like a washcloth or something. It's just very simply 1 row of half double crochets. We chain 2 at the end. We're gonna do half double crochet all the way down once more. And when we get to the very end, to this last stitch right here, we're gonna put 2 half double crochets into this last stitch. I'll show you when we get there. All right, so we're at the very end of our row. I'm gonna go ahead and half double crochet into that last stitch once and twice. Go ahead and chain 2, just like normal when we are at the end of our row for half double crochet. Turn your work, place 1 half double crochet into each stitch across. So you're just gonna go ahead and half double crochet in each stitch across, and when you get to the end, do 2 half double crochets into the last stitch. Okay, I placed 2 half double crochets into the very last stitch. I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, half double crochet across, but at the end I am not putting 2 stitches into this last stitch. So if you've noticed so far, we're essentially doing 1 row of half double crochet. We don't put 2 stitches into the last stitch. Then we do another row where we put 2 stitches in both sides. Then we're gonna make another row where we half double crochet without putting 2 stitches in the end, and then half double crochet, put 2 stitches in the end. So basically we're going on, off, on, off, on, off. For the beginning of the wrist part, I am actually only half double crocheting a 4th mount of rows. So I had a total of 72 rows. Divided by 4 is 18, so I am making 18 rows of half double crochet where I do 1 row where I do not add an extra stitch at the end, and then I do a row where I add an extra stitch at both ends. So every other row here has an extra half double crochet at the end. And now from here up until the halfway mark, which is 36 rows, I am going to add a half double crochet in every single row up until the halfway mark, which is 36 rows for me. I hope that makes sense. And I will have a link down below in my blog that will fully list it out if that would help you out more. So I'll meet back up with you when I've done my full 36 rows, and just a recap, so every other row we added a half double crochet at the end, and then from here up until the halfway mark we'll add a half double crochet in every single row, and I'll meet you back up when you've gotten to that point. So here I did exactly as I said. I did the remaining half of the sleeve completely by adding an extra stitch on the end every single time we reached the end. So now I have a total of half of all my stitches. From here on out, you're simply going to chain your 2 and half double crochet across, chain 2, half double crochet across. You're going to do that for the remaining 36 rows, or the remaining half of your sleeve. Go ahead and continue this now, and when you've finished, I'll meet back up with you. Go ahead and make 1 more just like this, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to put it all together. We are going to start off by combining the back panel with the 2 front panels. Take a front panel, lay it right on top on one side. Do the same with the other side. Now in order to join these together, I'm going to be using what I call an invisible join. I really think that this is the most flattering look for any design that you want to make. I will actually leave a link to my last video because I show you exactly how I do it with this project. And of course I'm going to be using some matching yarn because we don't want this to look janky. And I'm going to be using a yarn needle. These 2 should be exactly half of the back. So that means that for every 1 stitch in the back, there should be 1 stitch in the front. And I am just going to join them all together right across. So go ahead and do that. I recommend starting from the right side and working your way to the left. And bind off when you are done. Once you have joined the front panels to the back panel, now we're going to connect the sleeves. So go ahead and grab a sleeve, go from the top of it and fold it in half. Locate the middle stitch. I am just going to put a paper clip into that stitch so that I know exactly where it's at. Open this up. So I am just going to turn this sideways. So on the stitch line that we created, I am going to just match up the very center so that when we join these two pieces together, it fits perfectly. Make sure that as you're going, you keep that center stitch. You want to make sure those two stick together when you are joining them together. Go ahead and start on one side and join them together just the same way. And you're gonna do both of your sleeves in this manner. Okay, so we've completed both of the arms. Made sure that they're both joined together seamlessly. Now what we're going to do, because we do have an opening right here, this is the very last join that we're going to make, and that will put everything together. So now from here, what we're going to do is create the seamless joining stitch all the way down, We're going to connect everything together. I highly recommend putting a paper clip or some sort of marker right here in the armpit area so that you know exactly what two stitches need to link up together. You can also put little markers and stitches all along the area. Like, you know, this is an obvious point right here that you want to make sure that those are matched up as well. But anyway, so you want to join your project together from the wrist, so all the way down, then you want to continue going down the side of your project all the way to the end. So you're going to do that on both sides. All right, and when you have finished seamlessly joining everything together, it should look a little bit something like this. If you want, you can turn things inside out, make sure that all of the seams that you want are on the right side, and it should look really nice. You shouldn't be able to really tell at all. So to add some finishing touches, what I am going to do to all of the seams or the edges of this project, I am going to anchor down a stitch and I'm going to double crochet all the way around. I'm going to do it on both of the sleeves. I am going to do it on the front panel, and since the front panel leads all the way down to the bottom of my cardigan, all I'm going to do essentially is come down, wrap it around this way, come around here and up, come back up the project, all the way back up, and then just finish off. Once you've completed that, you are essentially done with this project. It's super easy, super fun, and you have something extremely customizable for any size. I'm going to go ahead and anchor on my stitch. There's my initial slip stitch, and I'm going to chain one. And then I'm going to single crochet in every single stitch all the way around. As I go along, I'm going to include any of the tails that I come across. This will really help to ensure that everything remains intact and does not slip out or come undone or anything like that. Super important when you are finishing up. All right, once you've come back around, go ahead and slip stitch into that first chain one that you made. That'll bring everything back together. Now you're going to chain three. And you are going to double crochet into every single one of those single crochets that you just made. Super easy, and it's a really cute way to add an accent to any of your pieces because it will help the edges to remain flexible and prevent anything from fraying or any of the ends from coming undone. Once you've gotten back to the beginning, go ahead and do a slip stitch into the third chain up, and that will complete everything. Go ahead and pull it tight, cut it off, and weave in your ends, and you'll have a really beautiful, elegant, and natural hem for this project and any future project that you want. And don't forget to tag me, of course. I want to see all your wonderful creations, all the different colors that you might use if you change colors, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! I saw stars on the pavement, California dreams, looked up through the bright light.